Hey guys, tonight we are going to become the ultimate warrior poet. We're going to step into the gleaming armor of a Japanese samurai, ready to defend our lord's honor in a moonlit duel. You can almost feel the cold silk grip of your sword, can't you? Well, you might want to swap that for a more comfortable grip on an abacus. It turns out you're probably going to be doing a lot more accounting than assassinating. Let's be honest. Given the sheer number of excruciatingly polite rules for everything, from how you walk to how you hold your chopsticks, you probably wouldn't survive your first formal tea ceremony, let alone a battlefield. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always nice to know who's drifting off with me. And while you're at it, feel free to drop your city and what time it is for you in the comments. It's fascinating to see where everyone is listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your story doesn't begin on a battlefield. It begins in a quiet, orderly castle town. Let's place ourselves in the middle of the Edo period, maybe around 1750. This is important because this is the Tokugawa shogunate, a time of profound, enforced peace that has lasted for over 100 years. The great civil wars are a distant, glorious memory, the stuff of fireside stories. The word samurai itself means one who serves, and you are, first and foremost, an employee. You are a member of the Shi class, the warrior administrators, who sit at the very top of Japan's rigid four-tiered social structure. This system, the Shina KSH, is the air you breathe. Below you, the UN, or the farmers, were considered the foundation of the nation because they produce the food. Below them are the K, the artisans, who make things. And at the very bottom, looked down upon by everyone, are the SH, the F. Merchants, who don't produce or make anything, but merely profit from the work of others. You are at the top. It's a position of immense status, but it's also a cage. You cannot change your class. You cannot become a merchant. You cannot become a farmer. You are a samurai, and so are your children, and their children. Your entire life is dictated by your birth. And here's the great, secret joke of your era. You may be at the top of the social ladder, but you are very often at the bottom of the financial one. The merchants, those despised parasites at the bottom, are getting rich. The growing cities of Edo and Osaka are booming, and a new cash economy is emerging. But you are paid in rice. Your entire wealth and status are measured in koku-1, koku being the amount of rice supposedly needed to feed one person for 1 year. As a mid-level samurai, your lord, your daimyo, might grant you a stipend of, say, 100 koku. This means you don't get a paycheck. You get a massive delivery of rice, which you then have to take to a rice broker, a merchant, naturally to exchange for actual money to pay for, well, everything else. This makes you, by necessity, a very careful budgeter, and probably gives you a very complicated relationship with rice. Historians still argue whether this rigid class system, with its elevation of the non-productive warrior, was a brilliant stroke of social engineering by the Tokugawa shogunate to prevent any chance of uprising, or if it was simply the most practical application of their adopted Confucian ideals of a well-ordered society. Either way, it has a direct consequence on your daily life. You are defined by your privilege. You, and you alone, are permitted to wear 2 swords, the long katana and the short wakizashi. This set, called the daisho, is your badge of office, the unmistakable sign of your status. You even have the legal, though rarely used, right to strike down a commoner who fails to show you proper respect. But this status is a heavy, expensive cloak. You are required to live in a certain style, to maintain a home in the castle town, to dress in silk, all on a fixed rice stipend that is losing its buying power every year as the merchant economy booms. Your entire existence is a precarious balancing act between maintaining the appearance of effortless superiority and the grubby reality of being essentially broke. So, how did you land this prestigious, if financially precarious, gig? The answer is simple. You were born. You didn't fill out an application. You didn't go through a grueling interview process where you had to demonstrate your loyalty and sword-fighting skills. You simply had the good fortune to be born as the son of a man who was also a samurai. That's it. Your career, your identity, and your future were decided for you in the moment of your conception. During this long, stable Edo period, the samurai class had become a closed, hereditary caste. The gates were shut. This wasn't always the case. You've heard the epic stories from your grandfather, who heard them from his grandfather. Stories of the Sengoku Jidai, the age of warring states. That was a chaotic, bloody, and, frankly, exciting time a century and a half ago. Back then, the world was on fire. Daimyo were constantly at war. Domains were overthrown overnight, and loyalty was a flexible concept. In that chaos, a man could rise, a clever, ruthless farmer's son, like the great Toyotomi Hideyoshi, could start as a sandal bearer and end up ruling the entire country. A skilled spearman could win a name for himself on the battlefield, be noticed by a lord, and be granted a patch of land and the right to wear 2 swords. The battlefield was a grim, terrifying, but very real avenue for social mobility. Butcher. Generation. Not a chance. The Tokugawa shogunate, the military government that finally unified Japan, hated that kind of chaos. Their entire philosophy was built on stability, order, and predictability. To achieve this, they locked the social classes in place. The most dramatic example of this was the sword hunt of 1588, when Hideyoshi himself ordered the confiscation of all weapons from the peasantry. This single act drew a bright, uncrossable line in the sand. It ensured that farmers would remain farmers, and only the samurai would have the means and the right to wage war. This wasn't just a law, it was a fundamental re-engineering of society. So you are born into a samurai house, a buke *. Your family's name, its kamei, is everything. It is your primary identity. You are not just Taro or Kenji. You are a son of the Abe clan, in service to the date daimyo of Sendai, for example. Your family's honor, its reputation, and its rank within the clan are now your burden to carry. And here's the next hurdle. You almost certainly must be the eldest son, the chonin. The rule of primogeniture is absolute. The eldest son inherits everything: the family headship, the hereditary stipend of 100 koku of rice, the house in the castle town, and the obligation to serve the lord. What if you have the unfortunate time to be born as the second or third son? Well, life just got complicated. You are a heizumi, literally a room filled. You live in your older brother's house as a dependent, with no stipend, no official duties, and no real prospects. You are a samurai by birth, but you have no position. You're an intern with no hope of promotion. Your options are bleak. You could be adopted out to another samurai family that lacks a male heir. The Yoshi system was an incredibly common and vital social tool. Historians still argue whether the Yoshi adoption system was primarily a practical mechanism to preserve family lines and prevent estates from being dissolved, or if it also functioned as a subtle, limited form of meritocracy, allowing more capable young men from lesser branches or allied families to take charge. If you're lucky, you get adopted and become the head of a new family. If not, you might be sent to a monastery, or spend your life as your brother's slightly awkward, permanent house guest. There was, of course, one other path, though not one you'd choose: becoming a ronin, or wave man. This is what happened if your lord's domain was abolished by the shogunate, or if your family committed some grave offense and was stripped of its status. You would be a masterless samurai. You still have your birthright and your swords, but no stipend, no home, and no purpose. You are a warrior in an age that doesn't need warriors. You might wander the highways looking for work as a bodyguard, or, more likely, try to find a new lord to take you in. Or you might even, humiliatingly, open a small school to teach reading and writing to merchant children, using the only other skills you have. For you, a samurai in training, the Ronin is a terrifying ghost story, a cautionary tale of what happens when you fail in your one essential duty: to serve. Your birth has given you a ticket, but it's a ticket you can still lose. So, you've been born into the right family, and you are thankfully the eldest son. Your future is secure. You won't be a Hayazumi, a room filler, living awkwardly in your brother's house. You will one day be the head of the family. But now, your real work begins, and it starts the moment you can walk and talk. You are perhaps 6 or 7 years old, and you are sent to school. But this isn't a military boot camp. You're not handed a wooden sword and told to start whacking a straw dummy. Your first and most important weapon is a brush. Your education begins with shado, the way of calligraphy. You kneel on a tatami mat, your back held perfectly straight. In front of you is a sazori, a heavy, black inkstone. You take the inkstick, made of compressed pine, soot, and glue, and you begin to grind it against the stone, adding a few drops of water. It's a slow, rhythmic, meditative process. The air fills with the faint, earthy, almost sweet smell of the ink. This act alone is a lesson in patience. Then, you take your brush, the food, and dip it. Your first task is to draw a single, perfect line. It sounds easy. It is agonizingly difficult. Your teacher is ruthless. Not necessarily cruel, but exacting. A tremble in the line shows a lack of focus. A blot of ink shows impatience. A weak stroke reveals a weak spirit. You spend hours, days, weeks, just drawing lines, and then moving on to simple kanji, or characters. You are learning to write, yes, but you are really learning discipline. You are learning to make your hand, your breath, and your mind all work as one single, focused unit. A samurai who cannot control a brush, it is reasoned, cannot possibly control a sword. This practice is a form of active meditation, a way to train your mind to be still, to act with precision and without hesitation. This is your first taste of the Zen principles that are woven into your warrior code. Alongside this, your other textbook is not a manual of arms. It is the 4 books of Confucius. You and the other boys in your class, all sons of samurai, sit and recite the Analects. Asterisk, the gentleman understands what is right. The petty man understands what is profitable. This is the core of your moral and political education. Remember, you are living in the great peace of the Tokugawa shogunate. The shogunate needs you to be a good, moral, and obedient administrator, far more than it needs you to be a bloodthirsty killer. Confucianism provides the perfect framework. It drills into you the concepts of filial piety and questioning, loyalty to your parents, which translates directly into unquestioning loyalty to your daimyo, your lord. It teaches you about social harmony, about your place at the top of the social order, and about your obligation to be a virtuous example for the lower classes. Asterisk, this is what, in theory, separates you from the merchants you despise. They think of profit. You are taught to think of duty, honor, and the good of the state. Historians still argue whether this intense focus on Confucian ethics was a genuine attempt to create a class of noble gentleman warriors, or if it was a brilliant and cynical piece of political engineering by the shogunate to domesticate a dangerous warrior class, turning them from potential warlords into peaceful, paper-pushing bureaucrats. Either way, you must memorize these texts. You will be quoting them for the rest of your life to justify your actions and to prove your refinement. Asterisk, your mind is now supposedly as sharp and disciplined as a blade, thanks to all those hours spent trying to draw a perfect circle and contemplating the sadness of cherry blossoms. So, at last, you are allowed to touch the actual hardware. You are probably around 10 or 12 years old, and you are about to begin your training in bujitsu, the martial arts. You can practically feel the cold steel of the katana in your hand, can't you? You ready to learn the secret death blow techniques? Well, hold on. You're not starting with the sword. That would be like giving a new driver the keys to a Formula 1 car. No, your first weapon is far older, and in many ways, far more difficult. It's the bow. You are introduced to the Yumi asterisk, the Japanese longbow. The first thing you notice is that it's weird. It's incredibly tall, often over 6.5 feet, towering over you. And it's asymmetrical. The grip isn't in the middle. It's about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom. This unique design, perfected over centuries, allows a mounted archer to swing the bow from one side of the horse to the other without clonking his poor animal on the head. Because that's what you were originally, a mounted archer. The katana may be your soul, but the original way of the samurai was kuba no michi, the way of the horse and bow. Your ancestors were cavalry, thundering across battlefields, raining arrows on unfortunate foot soldiers. So you begin kugitsu asterisk, the art of the bow. And it is, as you might have guessed, just as meditative and demanding as your calligraphy. You are taught to stand in a perfect, prescribed form. You learn the precise 8-step sequence for knocking, raising, drawing, and releasing the arrow, known as the hasetsu. It's a physical kata, a dance of incredible tension and stillness. Your teacher doesn't care if you hit the target, not at first. He cares if your form is pure. He cares if your breathing is controlled. He cares if you release the arrow with mushin, or no mind that same state of Zen clarity you were supposed to be chasing with your ink brush. You will spend months just practicing this form without an arrow. It's about as thrilling as it sounds. Then you move on to horseback archery, yabusami asterisk. This is where things get ... complicated. You're expected to control a galloping horse with only your knees, all while repeating that perfect 8-step sequence, holding that massive, powerful bow and trying to hit a target the size of a dinner plate. It's less a martial art and more a form of brutally elegant high-speed multitasking. Your first few attempts are probably a glorious disaster, more of a threat to your own horse than any imaginary enemy. Once your arms are burning and your pride is sufficiently humbled, you'll move on to the next weapon. Still not the sword. It's the yari, the spear. This, you're told, is the true weapon of the battlefield. While your ancestors were on horses, the great armies of the Warring States period were made of ashigaru, foot soldiers, marching in great blocks, their yari, forming a bristling forest of steel. Sojatsu, the art of the spear, is practical, economical, and brutally effective. A spear gives you reach. A man with a spear can keep a man with a sword from ever getting close enough to use it. It's the sensible, pragmatic choice. It's the Toyota Camry of medieval weaponry. You learn to thrust, to parry, to use the long shaft as a lever. You learn about the different types of spearheads, which is a surprisingly quirky rabbit hole. There's the simple, leaf-shaped sujari, but also the kamei, which has cross blades, like a pitchfork, perfect for hooking a cavalryman and politely inviting him off his horse. There's even the jumanji-yari, which has a complex, cross-like shape, a bit like a miniature deer antler on a stick. You drill these forms over and over, stabbing at the air, practicing against a partner with a padded wooden spear. Finally, the moment arrives. Kenjutsu, the art of the sword. In this long era of peace, the sword has become more than a weapon. It is a symbol. It is your ultimate badge of office. You are led into a small, clean dojo with a worn wooden floor. You are handed a bakken, a heavy, hardwood practice sword, and you begin. Kata. These are the forms, the choreographed sequences. Off attacks and defenses against an imaginary opponent. You learn the footwork, the angles of the cuts, the proper way to grip the hilt. You learn to shout, the kiai, a sharp, guttural yell from your core that is meant to focus your spirit and startle your opponent. Historians still argue whether the obsessive focus on the sword during the Edo period was a genuine spiritual refinement of the warrior code, what later becomes Bushido, or if it was a form of political theater, a way for a now powerless warrior class to maintain their mystique and justify their elite status. For you, it's just exhausting. Your shoulders ache. Your hands are raw. You spend hours, day after day, week after week, practicing the same subiri, the same basic overhead cut, until your teacher is satisfied. You are training to kill, in an age where you will almost certainly never fight. And then there is poetry. You are expected to be able to compose, on demand, a waka, or later, a short haiku. This is not seen as a soft or unmanly skill. It is the mark of a truly refined mind. It demonstrates your sensitivity to the world, your understanding of Mananoa where, the pathos of things, a kind of gentle sadness at the beauty and impermanence of life. This is considered vital for a warrior. Why? Because you are supposed to live your life as if it is already forfeit, ready to die for your lord at any moment. To be able to appreciate the fleeting beauty of a single cherry blossom, or the loneliness of a frog in a pond, is to understand the nature of your own existence. This is why so many samurai wrote death poems jizei in their final moments. Even as they prepared for ritual suicide or lay dying on a battlefield, their decades of training in art and philosophy gave them the composure to pen a few elegant, final lines. So here you are, a 10-year-old boy, who can already grind his own ink. Quote Confucius on good governance, and write a passable poem about the moon. You're becoming a man of culture. Only now, after your mind has been disciplined, are you finally deemed ready to pick up a weapon. Your training in the dojo is a memory now. The aches and the calluses, a permanent part of who you are. You are a full-fledged samurai, a retainer to your lord, and your day begins long before the sun. The first sound you hear is the deep, resonant boom of the Tokino cane, the temple bell that marks the hour, echoing across the rooftops of the castle town. It's the hour of the rabbit, around 5 a.m. Outside, the pre-dawn light is a cold, flat gray. You slide from your futon, a simple, cotton-stuffed mattress laid directly on the tatami mat floor. The air in the house is frigid, and your first breath is a visible cloud. Your servants are already awake, moving silently to open the wooden amadu. The storm shudders, letting in the sharp morning air. Your first stop is a basin of icy water. There is no hot tap. Cleanliness, saikitsu, is a near-religious obsession. It's not just about hygiene. It's about spiritual purity. A dirty samurai is a man with a dirty, disordered mind. So you wash your face, your hands, your neck. You take a small, fibrous stick, a fusa yiji, one end of which has been frayed into a soft tuft. This is your toothbrush, and you meticulously scrub your teeth, perhaps with a bit of salt. And now, the main event of the morning. Your hair. This is not a quick, 5-minute comb-through. It is a precise, symbolic, and frankly high-maintenance ritual. You are about to create the chanmej, the iconic top knot. You kneel as a servitor, perhaps your wife, if your rank is lower, approaches with a small, terrifyingly sharp razor, and they proceed to shave the entire top of your head. This is the sakayaki, the shaved pate. You sit perfectly still as the cold steel scrapes across your scalp. Why, you might ask, would anyone do this? The mainstream theory is that it's intensely practical. It reduces the heat, the sweat, and the unbearable itchiness of wearing a heavy, lacquered helmet, or kabuto, in battle. By shaving the top, the helmet sits more comfortably and the head can breathe. It's a battle-ready haircut. Historians still argue about the true origin of the sakayaki asterisk. Was it really for helmet comfort, or did it begin as a regional custom that became fashionable? Or was it, perhaps, a symbolic act, a way of showing that you were always prepared to put on your helmet and march to war, even in this age of peace? Whatever the reason, it is non-negotiable. To let your sakayaki grow in would be a sign of laziness, of disengagement, of not taking your role seriously. It would be the 18th century equivalent of showing up to the office in your pajamas. Once. Your pate is smooth. The real artistry begins. The remaining long hair at the back and sides of your head is meticulously gathered. It's combed through with a fine binsa kabira, a fragrant pomade or wax, to make it stiff and glossy. This isn't a messy bun look. It's sculptural. The hair is bound tightly with a cord, formed into a thin queue, and then folded forward, over the shaved pate, where it is tied and secured. The final result is a perfect, sleek, and utterly unique silhouette. It is a statement. I am a samurai. With your hair complete, you dress. This, too, is a process of layers. First, the fundoshi, a simple loincloth. Then, a thin underrobe, or shitage. Then comes your kasode, the garment that is the ancestor of the modern kimono. As a samurai, on duty, you're not wearing a flashy, brightly colored robe. Your kasode is made of silk or fine, dark-dyed cotton, perhaps a deep indigo, a somber brown, or a dignified gray. You wrap it, left side over right over left is reserved. For dressing the dead, a mistake you would only make once. You secure it with a narrow obia sash, wrapped tightly around your waist. Asterisk, and then, the final and most important step. You take your deishu from its ornamental rack. You slide the wakizashi, the short sword, through your obi, placing it close to your body. Then, the katana, the long sword, is thrust through, blade facing upwards, to allow for a smooth, fast draw. The weight of the two swords at your left hip is instantly familiar. It is a part of you. It's your identification, your sidearm, and the physical manifestation of your soul. You are now, officially, at the office. Asterisk, you move to the main room for breakfast. It is not, as you might hope, a grand feast. This is the meal of a warrior philosopher. It is Spartan, simple, and consumed quickly. You kneel at a low table. A servant places 3 things before you: a bowl of hot, steamed rice, or perhaps a thin rice gruel called okiyu, a small bowl of steaming miso soup with a few pieces of tofu or seaweed floating in it, and a tiny dish with a piece of pickled radish, takuan, or a sliver of salted fish. That's it. Salty, savory, and warm. It is fuel, not pleasure. It is designed to wake your system and remind you of the Confucian virtues of frugality and simplicity. You eat quickly, silently, your chopsticks moving with that same practiced precision as your calligraphy brush. You are clean, you are dressed, you are fed. You are a perfect, orderly component of a perfect, orderly society. And now your day can begin. Asterisk, breakfast is finished. The simple bowls are cleared away in silence. You stand, adjust the deishu at your hip one last time, making sure the swords rest at the perfect, prescribed angle. You give a slight, formal bow to your wife, who has been managing the household with a quiet, steely efficiency. And then you slide open the shoshi, the paper screen door of your home. You step into your geta, the raised wooden sandals, and their distinctive clack-clack sound joins the morning chorus of the castle town. Asterisk, the air is cool and clean. The streets of the Samariashiki district, the neighborhood where all the samurai retainers live, are already active. But it's not the chaos of a merchant district. There are no vendors shouting, no children playing. This is a commuter rush, but done with a profound, almost oppressive sense of order. You see other samurai, all dressed in their sober, dark blue or gray kamishimo, the formal vest and pleated hakama trousers worn over their kasode. They, too, are wearing their deisho. They are all walking, not running, with a measured, dignified pace. You exchange short, crisp, formal bows. Good morning, Tanaka-san. A fine morning, Watanabe-san. There is no idle chatter. Everyone has a place to be. Asterisk, you are walking to your office. Your office, of course, is a room within the daimyo's castle, the great fortress that looms over the entire town. You pass through the massive outer gates, where you exchange another perfectly executed bow with the samurai on guard duty. Asterisk, you arrive at a long, low administrative building, the Hancho. You slide open a screen, step inside, and your world changes. You are no longer a warrior. You are a bureaucrat. You leave your geta at the entrance and slide, in your white tabi socks, onto the tatami mat floor. The room is large, open, and filled with dozens of other samurai, all kneeling at low, black-lacquered writing desks. The only sounds are the rustle of paper, the quiet click-clack of the soroban, the abacus sound, the whisper of brushes on paper. The air smells of ink and old tatami, asterisk your great-grandfather, who fought in the last civil wars, might have been a master of the spear. You are a master of the sanyo, or accounting. Your lord's domain is a massive, complex business, and its currency is rice. Remember your stipend of 100 koku. Someone has to manage that. For everyone. Someone has to know exactly how much rice the farmers in the domain have produced this year. Someone has to calculate the 40% tax that is due to the lord. Someone has to record the distribution of those rice stipends to every single samurai family, from the highest-ranking elder down to the lowliest foot soldier. But so one is you. You kneel at your desk, and your servant places a stack of washi asterisk paper ledgers in front of you. These are the daicho, the official domain registers. Your job, for the next 8 hours, is to make the numbers balance. You dip your brush in your inkstone at calligraphy training finally paying off, and you begin to record. Received 50 bales from Tanaka village. Issued 10 koku to the garrison commander's stipend. You move to your abacus, your fingers flying across the wooden beads in a blur of practiced, clicking movements. Your sword skills may be getting a little rusty, but your abacus skills are absolutely lethal. You can add a 12-digit column of rice. Yields faster than your ancestor could draw his bow. Asterisk, this is the reality of your day. It is a mountain of tedious, exacting paperwork. The most dangerous battle you will fight today will be against a rounding error. The greatest enemy you'll face is an ink blot that smudges a critical number in the ledger. It is mind-numbing. It is stressful. If your books don't balance, it's not just an accounting error. It's a sign of your incompetence, a dishonor to your family name. You might even be ordered to commit seppuku for a sufficiently catastrophic accounting failure. Though that's admittedly rare. More likely, you'll just be demoted, and your family's rice stipend will be cut. Asterisk historians still argue whether this mountain of tedious paperwork was the shogunate's deliberate plan to defang the samurai class, turning them from unpredictable warriors into harmless paper pushers, or if it was simply the natural evolution of any complex feudal state transitioning into a centralized bureaucracy. For you, it's just your job. You are a warrior, but the war you are fighting is against deficits. You are serving your lord. You are serving your lord, not by dying for him in a blaze of glory, but by ensuring his rice warehouses are properly catalogued. It's a different kind of loyalty, a quieter, more boring, but perhaps more essential, form of service. Asterisk finally, the bell in the castle tower tolls the hour of the monkey, late afternoon. A collective, silent sigh seems to pass through the vast, ink-scented office. Brushes are cleaned and placed on their rests. Bacuses are slid into wooden cases. Ledgers are stacked, tied with silken cords, and stored on their proper shelves. You and your fellow paper-pushing warriors give each other crisp, formal bows. Your work for the daimyo complete for the day. You retrieve your day shoe, which you had to check at the door of this high-security administrative wing, and slide the swords back into your obi. The comforting weight returns to your hip as you slip on your geta and begin the walk home. Asterisk, the late afternoon sun casts long, deep blue shadows across the raked gravel. Your stomach is probably rumbling, thinking of your simple evening meal. But you are not quite done working. Your job as an accountant is over. Your performance as a samurai is not. You have spent your day practicing the bu, the martial art, if it was the martial art of accounting. Now you must dedicate your afternoon to the bun, the cultural and literary arts. This is the other half of your identity. A samurai who's only a fighter is a brute, a thug, a man no better than a common bandit. A true samurai, a bushi, is a man of refined taste. He must be as adept with a tea whisk as he is with a spear. So, when you return to your walled compound, you don't collapse on your futon and binge-watch shadow puppet plays. You head to a special, small room in your house, or, if your family is wealthy, a separate, tiny building in your modest garden. This is the chashitsu, the tea room. It's comically small, maybe only the size of 4.5 tatami mats. You have to stoop to enter through a low door, a design intended to force humility upon all who enter, regardless of rank. Inside, it is the definition of simplicity. A single, perfect scroll of calligraphy hangs in the alcove, alongside one carefully chosen flower in a simple vase. This is the setting for Chado Sing, the way of tea. And it is, as you've come to expect, not just about having a drink. It is a form of active meditation. You kneel in seiza, a formal kneeling position that has probably made your ankles permanently ache. Every single movement is prescribed. A kata as complex as any you learned in the dojo. You take the fukin, a silk cloth, and fold it with a series of precise, elegant snaps. You ritually wipe the natsumi, the lacquered tea caddy, and the cheshaku, the bamboo scoop. You ladle hot water from the iron kettle, which has been simmering over a perfectly arranged bed of charcoal. You spoon a tiny amount of matcha, that vibrant, electric green powdered tea, imperfectly shaped bowl, the chowan. You add the water, and then you begin to whisk with the chasen, a delicate bamboo whisk. You whisk not in a circle, but in a rapid W motion, until a perfect, pale green foam, a froth of jade, appears on the surface. You then present the bowl to your guest, perhaps your father, or a friend from the office bowing. They receive it bow, rotate the bowl exactly twice to avoid drinking from its front, take a sip, and then, most importantly, compliment the bowl, the flower, the scroll, and the exquisite bitterness of the tea. The entire process for one bowl can take an hour. It is slow. It is quiet. It is designed to force your mind to focus on nothing but the present moment. The sound of the water, the feel of the ceramic, the earthy smell of the tea. It is Zen in practice. It is also, for the uninitiated, almost unbearably slow. Your leg has been asleep for 30 minutes, but you dare not move. After your soul has been sufficiently quieted by tea, you might move on to Kato, the way of flowers, more famously known as ikebana. This is, once again, not what you think. It's not about making a big, colorful, pretty bouquet. It is a deeply philosophical and sculptural art form. You take a branch, a few leaves, and a single flower, and you spend the next hour contemplating them. You study their lines, their shapes, their essence. Then, using a small, sharp pair of shears, you meticulously trim them and arrange them in a vase according to strict, ancient rules. The main Akenobo school, for example, dictates that the arrangement must have 3 main stems: Shin, heaven, So, man, and Tai, earth. They must be at precise, prescribed angles. The space between the branches is just as important as the branches themselves. It's like minimalist sculpture with living things. It's probably the most high-stakes, stressful flower arranging in human history. Historians still argue whether this obsessive devotion to aesthetic arts was a true spiritual pursuit, an attempt to find zen and wabi-sabi beauty and imperfection in daily life. Or if it was simply the ultimate form of conspicuous consumption, a way for a warrior class with no wars to fight to prove their superiority and justify their stipends by mastering arcane, uselessly complex skills that no simple farmer or merchant would have the time or education to learn. If you still have time before dinner, you might unroll a scroll of paper, grind your ink, and practice your poetry. Your lord might even host a renga party, where samurai compete to link verses of poetry together. Imagine the terror. You, a hardened warrior, sitting on a pillow, chewing the end of your brush, trying desperately to come up with a 575 syllable line about a harvest moon that doesn't sound completely idiotic. This is Bun, the refined arts, and it is every bit as important, and every bit as difficult, as Bu, the martial ones. Section 8, *. The sun has finally set, a smear of deep orange and indigo behind the castle's silhouette. The single flower in your ikebana arrangement, the one you spent an hour contemplating, is now just a shadow in the alcove. The poetic mood dissolves. It's time for the final, and perhaps most complex, performance of your day. Your family. You slide open the screens to the main hall of your home, and the atmosphere changes instantly. The quiet, personal solitude of the tea room is gone. This is your house, but it is also a miniature court, with a hierarchy as rigid as the one you just left at the castle. * At the head of the room, kneeling on a silk cushion near the Tokugawa alcove, is your father. He's in retirement, or inkyo. This means he has officially passed the family headship and the job at the castle to you. But make no mistake, he is the chairman of the board. He is a living, breathing embodiment of that Confucian filial piety you've been reciting since you were 6. Your first act is a deep, formal bow, your forehead nearly touching the tatami. You report concisely that your duties for the daimyo are complete. He gives a short, gruff HMN response. That's a good day. A bad day would involve a lecture on how his grandfather, who fought at Sekigahara, never complained about rice ledgers. And then there is your wife, your Oko-san *. She is not a delicate, ornamental flower like the one you were just trimming. She is the general manager, the chief operating officer, and the finance minister of this entire household. While you were off at the castle balancing the Lord's books, she has been here, performing a far more difficult miracle, balancing yours. She has managed the servants if you can afford any, directed the education of your children, navigated the complex social politics of the other samurai wives, and, most critically, she has taken your rice stipend and somehow made it pay for everything. She is the one who deals with the smirking rice brokers. She knows, to the last grain, how much you can afford. * Your marriage was, of course, an arranged one. It was a contract between two families, approved by your lord, designed to secure an alliance or a useful connection. And while you are the undisputed master of the house in name, her power within these walls is absolute. This is the Emoto. The household system. A popular text of the day, the Ana Degaku, or the Greater Learning for Women, dictates that her entire existence should be one of 3 obediences: to her father as a girl, to her husband as a wife, and to her eldest son as a widow. It paints a picture of a life of complete, selfless submission. *, and yet, historians still argue about the true nature of a samurai wife's power. Was she truly just a servant to the men in her life? Or did her iron-fisted control over the household, the finances, and the next generation's upbringing give her a profound, if quiet, form of domestic authority. You look at your wife as she moves, directing a servant to bring the low lacquer tables for dinner. Her movements are as precise and economical as any kata you know. She doesn't wield a sword, but she is, in every sense, a warrior. You know? Better than to question her household budget. Dinner is served. You kneel in seiza again, that posture of excruciating, ankle-crushing formality. The family hierarchy is laid bare by your seating positions. Your father, the ingyo, is at the head. You, as the current head, are next. Your son, the heir, sits beside you, his back ramrod straight. Your wife and daughters sit slightly apart, and they will often serve the men before eating themselves. The meal is, like breakfast, a study in frugal simplicity. You are, after all, broke by merchant standards. You'll have your bowl of perfect, white steamed rice, the absolute, non-negotiable centerpiece of every meal. There will be another bowl of miso soup. Perhaps, as a luxury, a small piece of salted and grilled fish, or some nimona vegetables simmered in a light broth. And of course, a few tiny dishes of tsukemono, those crunchy, intensely salty pickled vegetables that serve as a condiment. The thick, peaceful darkness of your sleep is shattered. It's not the gentle temple bell this time. It says the hanshu, the fire bell, a frantic, clanging tocsin that hammers through the paper-thin walls of your house. But it's not ringing in the frantic rhythm for a fire. It's ringing in the sharp, steady, terrifying cadence of an attack. A castle alarm. Instantly, the house is awake. There is no yawning, no confusion. The quiet, orderly bureaucracy of your life has just evaporated. Your wife slides open the amado shutters, not to the gray dawn, but to a town already flickering with the light of running messengers carrying chokin, or paper lanterns. You don't say a word. You are already moving. You strip off your nightrobe. Your wife and perhaps a trusted servant, their faces pale but perfectly composed, are already pulling a large, lacquered wooden chest, the yoribitsu, into the center of the room. This is it, the one thing you have trained for your entire life, the one thing you and everyone else secretly believed would never, ever happen. The call to arms. Your great-grandfather's armor, meticulously maintained, oiled, and relaced for generations, is about to be worn for its intended purpose. Putting on your yori * is nothing like getting dressed in the morning. It is an ordeal, a ritual, a two-person job that takes time you suddenly don't have. You stand, arms outstretched, as the process begins from the ground up. First, special undergarments, thick padded silk and linen, to prevent the armor from chafing. Your skin raw. Then the suniate, the greaves, are tied around your shins. Then the haydate, the armored apron, is tied around your waist and thighs. These are followed by the coat, the armored sleeves, a complex mixture of silk brocade and chainmail, with small metal plates sewn on to protect your forearms and hands. You are already feeling the weight, the restriction. Then comes the main body armor. This isn't the ancient boxy gioroi your ancestors wore on horseback. This is a newer, more modern tesugusoku, or modern armor. Its cuirass is made of solid, overlapping iron plates, hinged together and lacquered a deep, menacing black, the color of your clan. Your servant ties the thick silk cords at your side, pulling them brutally tight. The air is pressed from your lungs. You are now encased in a rigid, 50-pound iron shell. The sword, the large, rectangular shoulder guards, are attached. And then, the final pieces. Your wife hands you the menpo, the armored mask. You tie it on, and the world changes. It's a grotesque, snarling face of lacquered iron, perhaps with a bristling horsehair mustache attached to its upper lip. It's designed to be terrifying, but it's also intensely claustrophobic. Your vision is now reduced to a narrow slit. Your breath sounds impossibly loud, echoing hot and damp inside the metal. A quirky but necessary feature. Many menpo have a tiny drain hole on the bottom, a nagashinawana, or sweat-draining hole, to prevent you from, to put it delicately, drowning in your own perspiration or other nervous fluids. Asterisk finally. The kabuto, the helmet. It's a heavy, multi-plated iron bowl. Your wife holds it up, and you bow your head to receive it, tying the thick shinobi-no-o cords under your chin. The helmet is crowned with your medate, your family crest, in this case, a set of simple, gilded deer antlers. They look magnificent, and are also perfectly designed to get snagged on a tree branch at the worst possible moment. You are now, finally, a samurai. You are no longer an accountant. You are a walking, clanking, half-blind instrument of war. You grab your yari asterisk, the long spear, from the wall rack. Your servant hands you your katana, which you thrust through your armored belt. You look at your wife. There is no time for a tearful, cinematic farewell. You give a single, deep, formal bow. She returns it, her hands pressed to the tatami. It's a bow that says, "Do your duty, come back," and your will is on the scroll in the black box, all at once. Asterisk you burst out of your gate and into the street. The sound is different. The clack-clack of geta is gone, replaced by the heavy, thudding jingle-clank of armored men running on the hard-packed earth. Other samurai are emerging from their homes, shadows of steel and lacquer in the torchlight, their helmet crests making strange, bobbing silhouettes. You fall in with the men of Yakumi, your unit. You all know the drill. You are not running to the castle. You are running to your designated assembly point in the Sanamaru, the third Bailey. Asterisk you run, and you realize something with dawning horror. You are out of shape. Your life of sitting, writing poetry, and practicing slow-motion kata has not prepared you for a half-mile sprint in 50 pounds of iron. Your lungs are screaming. The sweat is already stinging your eyes inside your mask. Historians still debate whether the samurai of the long peace, with their perfectly preserved ancestral armor and their ritualized kata, were genuinely battle-ready or, if their martial skills had atrophied into a form of dangerous, untested ceremonial performance. You are about to be the test case. You finally reach your banner and join the ranks, your spear vertical, your breath ragged. You are terrified. You are exhausted. And you have not even seen the enemy's Section 10 asterisk, but here is the great, anticlimactic secret of your life in the year 1750. The handshoe, that terrifying alarm bell, it never rings. Or, if it does, it's for a fire, and you'll join a formal, orderly bucket brigade, not a pike charge. That frantic, heart-pounding scene of donning your armor. It's a drill. It's a fantasy. It's a story you tell your children. You have inherited your great-grandfather's armor, and you will pass it on to your son, and the lacquer will still be unscratched. The silk cords will be relaced, not because of battle damage, but simply because they rotted with age. You are a warrior living in the Taihei, the Great Peace, a profound, iron-fisted stability that the Tokugawa shogunate has enforced for over a century. Your family has seen 3 generations born, live, and die without ever once drawing their swords in genuine combat. Your true purpose is not to fight wars, but to prevent them simply by existing. You are the structural skeleton of the state. The shogunate, in its wisdom, didn't want a million heavily armed, unemployed warriors sitting around with nothing to do. That's how you get civil wars. So, they gave you a new purpose. They made you the administrators, the accountants, the clerks, the police, and the professional ritual performers of the nation. Your life is governed by a document called the buke, the laws for the military houses. This is your real rule book, and it doesn't say be a brave warrior. It says you must not harbor fugitives. It says you must get permission from the shogunate before you repair your own lord's castle. It says your dress and your hairstyles must be appropriate to your rank. It is, in essence, the world's most detailed and threatening HR manual. And what of your martial arts? Your kenjutsu and sojutsu. With no battlefields to test them, they have transformed into something else. They have become budo, the martial way. They have evolved from practical battlefield skills into profound, philosophical systems for self-perfection. You practiced your kata over and over, not to learn how to kill a man in a muddy field, but to strive for a kind of spiritual and physical perfection. You seek that Zen state of mushin no mind, where the sword moves flawlessly on its own. Historians still argue whether this long piece perfected the martial arts by turning them into a vehicle for spiritual enlightenment, or if it hopelessly atrophied them, turning them into a form of beautiful, non-functional dance. Your dojo is not a combat training center. It is a moving monastery. This makes you a very strange creature. You are a member of a hereditary warrior caste in a society with no war. You are defined by your right to carry a sword that you will never, ever draw. You are paid a handsome government salary, your rice stipend, to perform a job war that no longer exists. So, in its place, you have been given the job of being a samurai. Your day is spent performing this role. Your meticulous grooming, your complex etiquette, your tea ceremonies, your poetry, your accounting. It is all a form of state-sponsored performance art, a daily ritual to justify your elite status. In the early days of this piece, some samurai couldn't take it. They became kabukimono eccentric ones, or wild ones. They wore garish clothes, carried absurdly long swords, and started brawls in the streets. Desperate to feel something like the warriors in their grandfather's stories. The shogunate's response was, as you might expect, swift and utterly brutal, and that fad ended quickly. You are not a kabukimono. You are a sensible, sober, stipend-collecting administrator. And so, your class, the masters of Japan, has become peacefully, perfectly obsolete. Your honor and status are absolute, but your economic power all the rules. The 1,000 tiny regulations for how to walk, how to sit, how to be. They can all just melt away into the quiet, simple darkness of your room. You are no longer a samurai, or an accountant, or a son.